Welcome to this healing meditation. At this time, our hearts and wishes for healing go out to all peoples living on this land, from the Atlantic to the Pacific, traditional lands of Aboriginal, Métis, and Inuit people. We sit silently in solidarity for a healing of hearts and minds and relationships that have been damaged for generations. We honor the strength and wisdom of Indigenous peoples from sea to sea to sea, who will show us a path to healing as we sit and listen and connect deep down to our spirit and the Great Spirit.
You know, in 2021, we all inherited this. Nobody today created residential schools. Nobody today created the Indian Act. Nobody today created 60 Scoop. But we all inherited this. And if we want to say we're proud Canadians, then we will accept the beautiful country we have today, and we will accept what we all inherited. And what I would challenge is everybody on Canada Day in this country, if you say you're a proud Canadian, read the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action. The over 100,000 residential school survivors told their story, including my parents, and they created the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action. Bring that into your personal life, your social life, your business life, and read the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls calls to action. There's 231 calls to action. And if we can all own those a little bit in this country, in one generation, we would overcome so many challenges today that our next generation won't inherit this. We will make them more as dreamers.
In order to redress the legacy of residential schools and advance the process of Canadian reconciliation, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission makes the following calls to action. There are 94. Here is a sample. Number 21. Healing. We call upon the federal government to provide sustainable funding for existing and new Aboriginal healing centres to address the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual harms caused by residential schools. Justice. Number 31. We call upon the federal, provincial, and territorial governments to implement and evaluate community sanctions that will provide realistic alternatives to imprisonment for Aboriginal offenders and respond to the underlying causes of offending. Number 33. We call upon the federal, provincial, and territorial governments to recognize as a high priority the need to address and prevent fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, and to develop in collaboration with Aboriginal people, FASD preventative programs that can be delivered in a culturally appropriate manner. Number 38. We call upon the federal, provincial, territorial, and Aboriginal governments to commit to eliminating the over-representation of Aboriginal youth in custody over the next decade. Reconciliation. Number 45. We call upon the Government of Canada, on behalf of all Canadians, to jointly develop with Aboriginal peoples a royal proclamation of reconciliation to be issued by the Crown. The proclamation would include a commitment to repudiate concepts used to justify European sovereignty over Indigenous lands and peoples, such as the doctrine of discovery and terra nullius, meaning the land of no one, land not under the sovereignty or control of any other state, social, or politically organized grouping. Number 48. Respect the Indigenous people's right to self-determination in spiritual matters, including the right to practice, develop, and teach their own spiritual and religious traditions, customs, and ceremonies. Number 94. Newcomers to Canada. We call upon the Government of Canada to replace the oath of citizenship with the following. I swear or affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of Canada, her heirs and successors, and that I will faithfully observe the laws of Canada, including treaties with Indigenous peoples, and fulfill my duties as a Canadian citizen. the confession of one of Canada's churches, the Presbyterian Church. We, the General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church in Canada, seeking the guidance of the Spirit of God and aware of our own sin and shortcomings, are called to speak to the church we love. We do this out of new understandings of our past, not out of any sense of being superior to those who have gone before us, nor out of any sense that we would have done things differently in the same context. It is with humility and in great sorrow that we come before God and our Aboriginal brothers and sisters with our confession. We acknowledge that the stated policy of the Government of Canada was to assimilate Aboriginal peoples to the dominant culture, and that the Presbyterian Church in Canada cooperated in this policy. We acknowledge that the roots of the harm we have done are found in the attitudes and values of Western European colonialism, and the assumption that what was not yet molded in our image was to be discovered and exploited. As part of that policy, we, with other churches, encourage the government to ban some important spiritual practices through which Aboriginal peoples experience the presence of the Creator God. For the Church's complicity in this policy, we ask forgiveness. We recognize that there were many members of the Presbyterian Church in Canada who, in good faith, gave unstintingly of themselves in love and compassion for their Aboriginal brothers and sisters. We acknowledge their devotion and commend them for their work. We recognize that there were some who, with prophetic insight, were aware of the damage that was being done and protested, but their efforts were thwarted. We acknowledge their insight for the times we did not support them adequately nor hear their cries for justice. We ask forgiveness. We ask also for forgiveness from Aboriginal peoples. What we have heard, we acknowledge. It is our hope that those whom we have wronged with a hurt too deep for telling will accept what we have to say. With God's guidance, our church will seek opportunities to walk with Aboriginal peoples, to find healing and wholeness together as God's people.
Fire is sacred in many indigenous cultures around the world. A sacred fire is a ceremony not usually filmed. We give thanks to all of those traditions and elders who have protected and honored the sacred fire through the ages. As part of this healing meditation, let's go to the sacred fire to warm our hearts and invite Spirit into our presence. We can offer prayers for healing and thanksgiving, which will be taken by the smoke of the fire up to Great Spirit. We can offer prayers to bring love and kindness into our hearts and to share it out to the world. In the silence and truth of the fire, we can begin to acknowledge, honor, and heal from the wounds of the past, and find a way to live together respectfully, equitably, and peacefully in the future.
All my relations. We have been considering the phrase, all my relations, for some time now. It's hugely important. It's our saving grace in the end. It points to the truth that we are all related. That we are all connected. that we all belong to each other. The most important word in all my relations is all. Not just those who look like me, sing like me, dance like me, speak like me, pray like me, or behave like me. All my relations. That means every person, just as it means every rock, mineral, blade of grass, and creature. We live because everything else does. If we were to choose collectively to live this teaching, the energy of our change of consciousness would heal each of us. And heal the planet. All my relations.
We would like to end this healing meditation with the Mi'kmaq Honor Song. The Mi'kmaq are the people of the dawn, where the sun first rises on the east coast of North America. This song was received by George Paul, a Mi'kmaq songwriter, in a sacred ceremony in the 1980s. The song says, "Let us greatly respect our nativeness. My people, let us gather. Let us greatly respect our Aboriginal roots. My people, let us help one another. Let us help one another and according to the Creator's intention for putting us on this planet." This song resonates with our heartbeats and the heartbeat of Mother Earth. This recording of the song is by Eastern Eagle, a well-known Mi'kmaq drum group that has been around for almost 30 years. Please stand for the song and in respect for all Indigenous people, and in the spirit of helping one another. Let the healing energy of this song spread from the Atlantic to the Pacific and touch all lands and all peoples in between.